Ode to Aptera, the most efficient vehicle on the planet. Aptera cruising, wingless flight. I love Aptera, it feels so right. Glides down the highway, taking off from the sun. No more drilling.
Hi friends, and welcome to my Aptera journey. This channel is intended to share with you the thrill of the acceleration of the all-wheel drive Aptera from 0 to 60 in sub 4 seconds. That's amazing. This channel is designed to share with you the thrill of the all-wheel drive Aptera on a twisting mountain road. But we don't have an Aptera yet, but there are some things I would like to share with you today. First, a little bit about myself. I'm an MBA in finance. In my day job, I underwrite millions of dollars of loans every day. I'm also an entrepreneur in recovery, and I was mentored by an investment banker. So I know the process to going public. Series A, Series B, Series C, etc. The issuance of shares, the pricing to make all those things tee up. So I get those things. I'm also an electrical engineer. Mostly communication systems, but I understand power. I understand transmission, electrical power, electrical transmission. And yeah, that's my background. Today, I have the thrill and the honor of sharing with you the women of Aptera. I'll be interviewing today 2 women of Aptera. But first, because I know this is important to Aptera's IPO, a little bit about the current financial market conditions. And those things matter, again, because that's going to help time when Aptera does an IPO. This week, yesterday, Friday, the Commerce Department reported that the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, the metric by which the Federal Reserve gauges inflation, rose 5.4% last month from a year earlier, a pickup from the revised 5.3% in December. So in fact, it looks like inflation is heating up. What's the Fed going to do? They're going to raise rates. They're raising rates to help slow the economy. In fact, we're already starting to see the economy start to buckle. Automobile car loans are starting to default at near record rates. And while that is happening, consumer spending posted its biggest gain in 2 years. And with rising interest rates, what's going to happen to consumers? They're going to get hammered. You're going to see credit card defaults also increase. And as I said before, when the earnings of Home Depot suffer, then we know that the turnaround and the pickup in the economy and the end of interest rate increases is near. But we're nowhere near that point yet. So expect financial conditions to worsen. In fact, in this last month, the S&P had a very bad month. The S&P dropped, I don't recall what the percentage, but it dropped quite a bit this month, primarily on rising interest rates. So there's a recap of the financial market conditions over the last month or so. And now I'd like to introduce the Women of Aptera. Thank you. I have the honor and pleasure of introducing to you a couple women of Aptera. I have today with you Sandrine from Louisiana and Julia from Colorado. And these lovely individuals are Aptera reservation holders, investors, and ambassadors. So welcome to you both to my Aptera journey.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And just a quick story. I was at a charging station a month and a half ago or so. And my experience, a quick charging station, and my experience had been that there's almost always guys that are at the charging station. And I think there were like 5 machines there. And one single woman came up to a charger, plugged in. I go, oh, that's great, you know. And she's off on a road trip. And then another single lady, maybe with a pet, pulled in, started charging. I go, oh, that's great, you know. And then myself and my fiance were eating a snack or, you know, flipping through our phones, waiting for the charge to complete. And then I looked up, and there was a whole line of women, single women, in their EVs charging. And something clicked for me. And what clicked was the women are getting electric vehicles as well. So Julia and Sandrine not only get electric vehicles, they get Aptera. So if it's okay, I'd like to ask a couple questions of you both. And before I do, would you mind sharing with our viewers a little bit about yourself? Sandrine?
Absolutely. So I'm Sandrine, and I work at a university in Louisiana, and I do software licensing and documentation for their IT group. I've participated in Aptera since the first iteration in 2010, but back then I was in high school, so this is actually the first time I'm able to make a reservation for it. So I'm pretty excited.
That is an awesome story.
Thank you.
It's like Aptera in the genes. That's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And Julia, could you share just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm in the high-tech field too, but I also do a lot of sustainability work, including electric vehicles. So I am the president of the Denver Electric Vehicle Council, which is a chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association. I'm starting a nonprofit with some people on home electrification. We do consulting for people who aren't sure about home electrification. We go into their homes and uh, tour their homes and give them advice and things like that. And I do a lot of other things too with sustainability and electric vehicles specifically. I'm actually trying to get, so Colorado has incentives for electric vehicles, and I'm actually trying to get them to include auto cycles as well.
Fabulous, Julia. Thank you for the introductions to you both. And my first question is, do you own an electric vehicle? And I'm going to direct that to Julia because my guess is you probably do.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a Model 3.
Tesla Model 3, awesome. A very efficient electric vehicle, by the way. I think it's
It is.
one of the most,
Yes.
yeah.
It's I think that
it's,
I mean it's a standard range, so I think it is the most efficient electric vehicle of decent range.
mhm. Yeah, I think you're right. And our colleague here, our Aptera colleague in Louisiana, Sandrine, do you have an electric vehicle?
Unfortunately, right now I do not. I've actually only had two cars in my life so far. The first one donated from my parents, and the second one we bought when the other one was totaled. So we bought it used, but it's a Corolla, so it's really good miles per gallon as well. We tried to get something that would last a very long time, but this is the next upgrade for me, hopefully.
And you mentioned last a long time. One of the things that attracts me to the Aptera is right to repair.
Right.
And I'm an electrical engineer, and if you give me the documentation and the tools, I can probably figure it out if I want to repair it or hack it. So yeah, lasting a long time is a good thing.
Yes, it definitely is.
And Sandrine, can you tell our viewers what attracts you to the Aptera?
So Aptera is just embodies everything that I could ever want about a car. It's highly aerodynamic at its core, sustainable as a concept. It's like a perfect marriage of those two concepts too. With solar as the finishing touch, just brings it to a whole new level. The whole never charge thing, especially if you're in a solar area, or not necessarily solar, but just a very sunny area, is going to be a very, very big draw for a lot of people, I think.
And Julia,
Well,
what
a lot of
attracts you?
things, but I feel like the auto industry has been really boring and innovative for decades and decades and decades, and I think Tesla kind of knocked that out of the park. And now all the legacy automakers are sort of scrambling to even produce an EV by taking their ICE cars, ripping out the engine and sticking in a battery and stuff. Um, but I mean, what kind of excites me? One of the things that kind of excites me about electric vehicles is suddenly the whole transportation industry has opened up as far as innovation. I mean, we have no idea what they'll be like in 10 years. Probably different from what we think. Just like when the iPhone first came out, no one would have predicted all the ways that it has transformed society. Um, so innovation is a huge thing, and honestly, Aptera is one of the most innovative EV companies there are, really. And the cool thing is basically they took one concept, which is efficiency, and they basically sort of, it's almost like an experiment. Let's see how far we can go with this. Let's see how efficient we can make it. And um and luckily, form followed function, and the most efficient shape was also incredibly beautiful, which is nice too. So I'm just, a lot of it's innovation. I just like to follow really any company that's doing things that no one else has done before. But also, like Sandrine, the idea of having basically this vehicle that I might never have to put any fuel in any way. It's great for the planet, and it's great for the pocketbook, and it's just a cool idea.
Definitely
Hey, you
agree.
mentioned and I thought you mentioned an interesting idea, Julia, and I hadn't quite thought of it using these words, but I was aware of it cognitively. It's a cool looking design,
Very.
and of course, yeah, and it stemmed from the efficiency. But when you look at it, you go, "Wow, that's awesome!" And the innovation. Um, those are all good points. Um, what? Here's another question, just to banter about. What other electric vehicles would you consider right now, and why?
Well, I mean, out there, um, I really would only consider another Tesla or an Aptera, because I don't think anyone else is doing anything that is sort of outstanding enough to uh, to make me turn my head, kind of. I mean, there may be companies out there that are too small, or maybe they're in China and we don't know about them. But for the companies out there, really, that's it.
Yeah, for me, I would say it would have to be older cars because there's not a lot of new ones that I would feel comfortable getting. I know that there's like the Ioniq, so I've looked at that. But I would probably say Chevy Spark or BMW i3 is the most likely for price reasons. The Chevy Bolt, it had a lot of bad press and it got banned in a bunch of parking lots, so that's kind of not as much on my radar until that blows over. Um, I would say I'm definitely hoping that a lot more other electric vehicles come out just to compete. So I would probably say like if these ever come out, I would definitely look at a Prius EV, like a Subaru Impreza EV, definitely Arcimoto, Nimbus, or Lit Motors are some other ones I've looked at. But yeah, the ones that are just available now, Spark or i3 probably.
Yeah, I'm particularly fascinated with the lit motors,
Hmm.
self centering vehicle, two-wheeled vehicle. I think it's a two-passenger.
I think, yeah, I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but it might be two passenger. Like I think it's still one seat though. It just has room for a
Mm-hmm.
second. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so we're Aptera reservation holders, ambassadors, and investors. How do you envision using your Aptera?
Um, I would probably use mine as just mainly a commuter. I It wouldn't really be much different from, any other use, but I mean, I wouldn't really be hauling things that much. And so the towing capacity is something to think about as well if you're trying to tow things. But I wouldn't be doing any of that. I'm probably not going to move anything much heavier than a bike because I'd have to handle it myself as well. But yeah, just commuter and like maybe seeing my family out of town, but not a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, I would definitely use it for basically what I'm using my Model 3 for today. However, there are a couple of other things. First of all, I mean, it really does scream, go on a road trip with me. I mean, it's so efficient, and I have actually slept in my Model 3, and it's doable, but the back of that Aptera is huge. The stick a bed there, and you're you know stick a king size bed in there practically. Just kidding. Um, and then another thing I want to do with it is I can't really justify having an EV collection just because I like them and I don't want to give up my Tesla. So my plan is to put it on Turo, to kind of first of all, so it doesn't just sit around, because honestly an EV sitting around is taking it's not displacing an ICE car. And then also to sort of let people have test drives. Now I did look on Turo, and the Slingshot is there, so I know they do wheelers, but I don't know how long it'll take them to include Aptera, but that's a plan anyway.
Well, I could say I have a couple boys up in Seattle, and I'm in Portland, Oregon area right now. So I go up there quite often, so I can envision trips up there. I can envision putting a mattress or a sleeping bag in the back and visiting the Northwest uh, mountains and beaches and stuff like that. Um, and I have used Toro before. In fact, I rented Mustang Mach E and a Polestar 2. And that's kind of the way I can test drive EVs, is go onto Toro and test drive them there. And I particularly like the Polestar. Uh, so what feature? Oh, on a follow-on question, because we have some of the ladies of Aptera here, on how you might use your Aptera. Is there anything that you think using your Aptera would be different from a man's?
I don't think so. Not for me anyway.
Yeah, not so much. I mean, yeah, the only difference I could see is like maybe having a lot more tools, but like you all said, the back is just massive, so you can put whatever you want in there. You could have a bunch of tools for whatever job you do or whatever you need to haul, as long as it's not like really, really tall. But you could probably still work something out with the amount of space that's back there. So not too much different than that.
I and you made me think, Sandrine, about the one promotional video that Aptera had with the 400 rolls of, I think it was 400 rolls of toilet paper or 200 rolls of toilet paper in the back. That was just so cute.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see. What features of the Aptera are most compelling for you? Is there any feature that's compelling?
I'd probably say just like the sheer attention to detail for the aerodynamics. So it's like it just bleeds efficiency and it's just outer design so much. That really drew me to it because you see a car and you're like, okay, the front is aerodynamic and the back they don't really care that much. But the Aptera, you take one look at it and you're like, where's the back half of the car? Because that's just how much they value the drag coefficient and just the material usage and everything else about the entire design. So that was probably the biggest feature for me. I don't know, all the math for it, but I do know that, the drag can also ease up the acceleration resistance, from wind. And so that's part of the drag. You can accelerate faster with less energy. And that also, rolls into the whole design. But that outer shell of it is just gorgeous in my opinion. Um, but yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot that is necessarily different, which can really be a good thing because you don't want too much new, and then everyone's like, "How do I do this? This is so different." The inside is pretty standard for what I would consider, a good vehicle, and it's not too much and it's not too little. I think it's just right.
Well, I agree with all those things. I actually think that the interior is very nice. I think it's very aesthetic. I think they did a great job on that. Solar panels, of course. I'm sure both of us think that that's an important thing. Um, uh, yeah, and I guess the 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 shell, the hardness of the shell, and the fact that it is in general, easy to replace. I think relatively cheap to replace in an accident. I mean, all that's intriguing.
Right.
Um, so I like I mean, I like everything about it really. It's hard to say what
Same
I
here.
don't.
Well, and Julia, you led me right into my next question. What are your thoughts on the re, the right to repair strategy in Aptera's rollout strategy?
Right to repair, honestly. I mean, I don't have I'm not one of those sort of you're infringing on my rights type of person. So I don't really care. I mean, I certainly understand that a lot of automakers they've got proprietary, um, they've got proprietary stuff. They don't want to do anything dangerous. This is my second Model 3. My first one, someone ran into the door, and so I took it to a third party. And everyone's always sort of getting on Tesla's case for right to repair. And so I kind of asked them about that, and they kind of rolled their eyes, like it's a non-issue. Tesla's fine. But they also said, which I thought was interesting, that the Taycan, so they did kind of high-end cars. The Taycan, apparently, you cannot do anything having to do with the high voltage system. So if you want to do something with the high voltage system, you have to call someone from the dealership. They have to come over and do that little part of it, and then you do the rest.
Mm.
So, but I mean, I can understand. They don't want to. It'd be bad press if if someone got electrocuted by a Taycan. So I guess, okay, so two parts of it. So I don't really care about the issue. However, I think Aptera's way of dealing with repairs, which is, you know, sending the part, or I believe they said you could even 3D print some of the parts, um, and then having, IKEA instructions, and then anyone could do it. I mean, I think that's brilliant because, I mean, when you're an EV startup, you can't have repair places all over the place. So I think it's a great strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's a great strategy to cut costs in on their side of the field because, that's a huge time sink and a cost sink trying to get people trained in how to repair it. As for what I feel about right of repair, that's actually a big draw for me as well. I'm pretty into right of repair, being able to take it apart, tinker with it, add features, stuff that I want to add or not. And like I even bought my phone, which is like it's a fair phone. It's a imported European phone, and it has right to repair for all of its parts. You can order the parts, just take the phone apart, snap it in, you're done. You don't have to go buy a new phone if something like anything on it breaks, and it's really great. So that's a huge draw for me, and increases the worth immensely, in my opinion. It's a big
Wow,
distinguisher from Tesla.
that's awesome, Sandrine. That's cool. Uh,
Thanks.
um, what advice, if any, would you offer to senior Aptera leadership? And just what would you advise leadership at this time at Aptera?
Well, I think right now, obviously, investments are a big deal. I mean, any advice I give them is just silly because I'm not in their field. But if I was sitting down with coffee with them, so there, Aptera is not getting the attention it deserves. And I think we all kind of agree with that. And the question is kind of why. Um, and the as I said before, the auto industry has been very conservative. I mean, they really haven't made any changes except cosmetic and things that NHTSA tells them to do for a long time. Um, and also, I think the public is also very conservative about cars. I don't know why. I mean, they're not. I mean, you get different clothes, you get different electronics. Somehow, cars, people, maybe it's because they cost so much. People are very conservative. They're afraid of change a little bit, I think. Um, so, so I think there's kind of two different investment groups that, I mean, I'm making this up, but two different investment types of people that Aptera needs to go to. One is sort of traditional investors, who may, not really be in the EV field, but they're just looking for the next new thing that can make the money. And the other one is kind of the, more innovative, high tech, maybe EV area. And so for the first group, I think they have to somehow convince them that yes, it looks unusual, but it has all that's needed for a car. It's it will be able to replace any two-person car plus a bunch of other, replace all the current features and have better features as well. So somehow they have to do that. And with the high tech people, they kind of have to go in the opposite direction and say, hey, this is the future. I mean, like I was saying, transportation is going to change. And this is where it's going to go, efficient. And another thing that I guess I like about Aptera, and I don't think is mentioned enough, is how absolutely simple it is to make compared to a regular car company. So, a regular car company, like you look at like Lucid and Rivian, I mean, they're blowing billions of dollars every year. And the reason is they have to produce these huge car factories, and Aptera is producing something that's basically has all the functionality of these other cars, but it's doing this in a very simple and low cost really way. And I mean, I don't know why every investor doesn't go, "Oh my God, yeah, why don't we make cars like that? We don't have to make them as complicated and as expensive as we do, you know?"
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point, and I totally agree because, so many cars on the road. That's actually one of the big things I've noticed for regular, combustion engines is, the older ones you can kind of go in, if something breaks within reason, you can kind of, see what's wrong, troubleshoot, see if you can fix it yourself. But nowadays, everything is so like even changing a headlight for a lot of them. It's so involved. There's so many things that have to be taken apart or there's a lines running through here, tech going through there, and you just can't do anything with new vehicles because of how incredibly, intense the tech is in there and just they're so complex. And it's really just, you could just make something very simple like the Aptera instead, and that's another part on the right to repair, I think, for me. But for as far as like advice for the leadership, I would probably say the first thing that comes to mind and ties in with the notability notability of Aptera not being as well as we might want it. Add more merchandise, all types of merchandise. They do have a shop for some merchandise, but I would say focus more on the keychains, focus more on kind of things other than t-shirts because everybody has a t-shirt. Not everybody has. It's true. Uh, but yeah, no, everyone's got a t-shirt. But not everybody has like a keychain of Aptera or something to add to like even a cell phone charm or a sticker, just something that is visible to so many people that they're gonna say, "Hey, what is that sticker? Like, what is that design you have?" And it's like, "Oh, this is Aptera," and it's a perfect icebreaker. Anybody who's even remotely interested would see it and go look it up. Bumper stickers, that's another obvious one. Just things like that. That visibility merchandise. Um, One of the things we've talked about in the community a lot as well is getting like small collectibles as well. So some people have 3D printed the Aptera itself, made a little mini model, a die cast Aptera that is, please make a die cast Aptera. That would sell like hotcakes, I think. Because,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah, so just things like that, things that are trinkets that don't take up a huge amount of space and don't sit in a closet. That's what I would very much recommend, and that will bring interest, investors, so on and so forth, very easily, I think.
So I want to say one more thing, which is not my idea. It's Steve at Aptera Owners Club's idea, but I think I just want to reiterate it because I think it's a really good idea. And that is, he was saying that um, they would get, which I think is true, they would get more takers for the first 2,000 if they had some kind of badging or some way of making those first 2,000 different from the rest, because then they would be collector items. And I think
Right.
that that's yeah, they
I
should
forget the
implement that. I
name
think
of
that's a great
the,
idea.
the, the lead designer, but he said there's going to be a book for the first 2,000. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, Julie, if they come up with like special badging or something.
Mhm.
I but yeah, I
But
forget
they
his
need to
name.
say it because the whole point of the special badging is to lure people in.
I think that's a great idea. I do. Um, well, that leads me kind of sort of to the next question. If you had your hand in the design of the Aptera, what changes or features would you add?
For me personally, I would recommend adding a plug in the trunk somewhere. I'm not sure where because I'm not an engineer, but just an open plug in the trunk for capacity expansion. So, say you get like a 250, or even if you have 1,000, and you're like, hey, I want even more range, and Aptera could make battery packs to add to that expansion slot if desired. That would, I don't know how complex that would be, but that would just be an idea that I had. Because I have the 250 on reservation, so it'd be nice if I could say, hey, maybe I want another 250 added, or another 400, almost SD cards, but very different stuff. Just more range, the ability to add more range easily.
That's a great option. I think I've heard somebody else mention that as well on chat someplace. Can I upgrade range later? Yeah.
Right.
So, so my one kind of concern with the Aptera personally, and no one else talks about this, so maybe it's just my own little hallucination, is that I'm afraid that the wheels will be invisible to other drivers. And so the sort of scenario that runs through my head is, I'm on the freeway and, I mean, people kind of like move left and right around their lane or and sometimes infringe on other lanes and stuff like that. But at some point, they kind of have a sense of where the cars around them are. And my little scenario is that, a car driving next to me will not see those wheels and hit me, or, catch them and carry me off into who knows where. Um, uh, so, so, um, so what I would like, and I mean, this is just sort of magic wand kind of stuff, is to have some kind of like ADAS system which could like detect cars on either side of you and be able to kind of move over a little bit. So some kind of way of solving that problem. Now, when it comes out, it might not even be a problem. It might just be in my head. But that's kind of what I would do.
I did notice when the Delta was recently in some event at night, both in Switzerland and in California. At nighttime, the orange light around the front wheel pants just stays illuminated. It's just on all the time. So you kind of have these markers right there on your wheel pants.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I thought that was good. I was in a parking lot, and there was, I think it was an old Jeep or something, but another vehicle where the tires the wheels kind of stuck out, and the owner happened to be there, so I kind of went up to him and I said, hey, explained to him about Aptera, showed him pictures on my phone, and said, this is my concern. Do you ever have that? Have you ever had a problem with that or heard of anyone having a problem with that? And he said no. So it might just all be in my head. I don't know.
Well, let's get them on the road. I'm ready to go.
Me too.
Yeah. Aptera has had several rounds of crowdfunding. What are your thoughts on the company strictly as an investment opportunity?
So I would say for anyone looking to invest, I think it's a huge opportunity personally. Similar, some thoughts were shared about like the iPhone earlier. It's something that I can see similar to that, maybe not as game changing in some ways, but it's very similar. I mean, it can do so much. It's not just your standard motorcycle, don't get hit kind of thing. It's like it's got safety features. It's got all the streamlining of an auto cycle as well. So and just based on how efficient it is as well, puts it in a different class from the other auto cycles that are around. um so just on that spot alone, I would say this is a huge opportunity in investments. And it's just so affordable to own, and especially in sunny areas where this could be something that goes pretty fast pretty quickly. So I think it's a great time to start.
I like what Sandy Monroe said at some point. He said something like, if you could get in on, when Tesla first started,
Hmm.
would you do it? And I kind of think that's true. I mean, Aptera probably won't be a Tesla completely, but it's got it's just such a great product. Um, and another thing that I think people don't kind of think about is the so who are the players in transportation now, and where are they going to be 10 years from now? So I think Tesla's going to be fine. They're the only ones that I really think are going to be fine. I think some of the Chinese companies will be fine because the Chinese government supports them. But then you've got basically legacy. Now, legacy's in deep doo doo because for many reasons, they make most of their money on parts, which EVs don't really use as much, and financing, and that's going to be a big problem when suddenly everyone looks around and says, "Oh, EVs are the future," so everyone defaults on their gas car loans. They don't have the DNA, as they say it, to really be innovative. They've got huge debts on things like engine factories, which they probably haven't paid off. So legacies in deep doo doo. And then EV startups, they're obviously in trouble to a certain extent. It's a startup. You have to have it's a startup, but it's not a startup like making, whatever, drinking glasses or something like that. It's a startup that requires a huge amount of money, and you don't get that money back for years and years and years. So, like I said, Rivian, Lucid, they're burning money like anything. So basically, Aptera is in a unique position in that it um, it is an EV startup, but it doesn't really have as much of a danger because it doesn't cost billions and billions of dollars for them to get going. So it's really sort of a unique investing opportunity, I think. Obviously, any of these companies are, you could lose your money. But I think if you do the math on the probability of them continuing, even if something happens, someone will buy them out, I think. So the probability of them continuing, and if they make it, how popular they would be. Aptera, from what I'm in kind of, look around in the EV community and, talk to people and stuff like that. It seems like it is the startup that people in the know are most excited about. And I don't think I'm biased.
Well, I do have to agree with you, Julia. And I'll go back, like you, to something Sandy Monroe said. When you look at the Aptera, you say almost immediately, that's different. Just like the Volkswagen Beetle has become an icon, or the Midget, or the Mini Cooper, that are icons as cars. And because of the simplicity, now I'm getting on my rant here, because of the simplicity of construction and the durability of the materials, and over $1.5 billion of pre-orders, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer from an investment standpoint. And something I've mentioned, yes, I'm on my soapbox. Something I've mentioned before on my channel. There's a whole universe of investors that are what we call ESG, environmental, social, and governance types of investors. And there's a mountain of money waiting to deploy into clean energy or energy efficiency or sustainability or housing for those that need housing. All those ESG types of areas. There's a mountain of money, and with $1.5 billion of pre-orders, in my opinion, it's like a no-brainer. So yeah, sorry I got on my soapbox. Do you have any thoughts that you would like, as a representative of the other half of the world, that you would like to leave to our viewers today?
Probably just that Aptera it has been a dream of mine for like over a decade. I fell in love with it the first time around. It was just like a dream come true for it coming around again now. And plus, on top of that, the first time around, they're in a unique position now as well because this is their second run. They know what they did wrong before and they're not doing that anymore. They fixed, the issue that they had before. They improved the design just, by leaps and bounds. And they are very candid and they're just like, hey, we're taking it slow, we're being, efficient with all of the funds that are being made, and they really are. Like, they're delivering on everything that they're doing, and just the fact that they've had experience before knowing what not to do is extremely important, I think. But yeah, and I love that, there's a lot of investment, issues with some things that are just like 1,000 or more minimum investment, and this one is like you can go down to 210. That's the minimum that, if you don't have a lot, you just want to say, hey, Aptera, I just want to invest a little bit. You can do 210, and that's like almost nothing for a lot of people. So that's another great thing that I think they're doing very right. And yeah, just the fact that it's a great auto cycle and an amazing amount of right to repair, 3D printing, it's definitely something to look into if you are wanting to get in on what I would consider the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would want to convey is not a thought as much as sort of an emotion, and that is, the emotions of like excitement and optimism. You know, so this is a company, and there are other companies like this, but this is a company that kind of gives me hope for the future. You know, they're solving a problem, and they're solving it. EVs kind of solved the problem, but now they're going a lot further. I mean, imagine if, I mean, I know Aptera can't make cars for the whole world, but imagine if Aptera came out and everyone looked at it and said, "Oh my God, we have to do something like that." And so everyone tried to make their vehicles more efficient. Everyone tried to put solar on it. Um, Everyone tried to make them more simple. But uh, I mean, it's thoughts like that that kind of keep me excited about this company. You know, that I mean, there's a lot of scary things in humanity's possible futures, and so stuff like this, it's something that I like to kind of focus on and try to make happen.
I think those are wonderful, wonderful closing thoughts, Julia. Aptera is bringing to us something to be optimistic about. And I want to thank both of you today, Sandrine from Louisiana, Julia from Colorado. And my wish for you and for our viewers is to stay well, be healthy, and charge on.
Absolutely. Charge on.
Okay.
No more drilling, can't you see? We're done. Cruising, wingless flight. I love Aptera, it feels so right. The future is now. Protect Mother Earth. Keep her healthy for what it's worth. What's your pleasure, Luna or Soul? Let's save the planet, we're on a roll. Lights down the highway, taking off from the sun. No more drilling, can't you see?